year ago, around this time, one of us was covering what seemed to be a chaotic franchise. And I think it still seems that way from the outside, but it's not me this time. It seems like it's you. Is it as chaotic as what it appeared to be? What was this offseason like, and where are they at? Where are the Eagles at right now?
I guess everybody gets their turn, John, right?
There you go.
Covering these chaotic franchises. Yeah, for sure. This last season was totally chaotic. I mean, forget the fact that it was just an extraordinary year given what was going on in the world, but then add what the internal dynamics were like and the way things just kind of totally melted down for the Eagles. I mean, Doug Peterson was never really getting the type of authority that you would think that a Super Bowl winning head coach would get. For a while, that was all okay. You had the owner and Jeffrey Lurie and general manager Howie Roseman very involved in a lot of decision-making and the ins and outs of the football operation. And that was kind of good for Peterson for a while because he's not a guy that really that honestly, he needs some help in certain areas. Like he's not like an around the clock 24-hour a day coach like some of these guys are. And so he needed a little assist here and there. And it all worked really well in 2017 in particular when they won the Super Bowl. All the things were kind of bouncing off of one another pretty well. But then once you taste success, everybody starts to feel a little bit more entitled, I would say. I think that the front office started creeping in a little bit more on Peterson's space. Peterson was, obviously feeling like he deserved some space there. And so there was friction from that aspect. And then there was the whole Carson Wentz thing, which, he just completely melted down. The dynamics between he and Hurts, not that they didn't get along, but it was just awkward. It's been an awkward career for Wentz so far. Maybe that changes in Indianapolis. So, yes, all that stuff was real. Doesn't mean it's permanent. I think that they have smoothed some of that stuff out. But yeah, it was chaotic as it can be.
So has Nick Siriani, what has it been like with him? So, and again, they haven't played a game. So you don't really know how things are until you endure some obstacles, some hard times, or whatever. But how much has the situation calmed down over the last couple of months?
Yeah, I mean, he came in and his introductory press conference was not great. And so in Philadelphia, as you know, we're kind of quick to pounce.
Really?
Look for the negativity and, make judgments full on before, as you say, a game was even played. And so he was taking heat early and there was like, he doesn't have any head coaching experience. That was kind of like a thrown together coaching search process because they weren't really intending on firing Peterson. And it was just like, is this a really bad outcome? And it ended up, it could go obviously either way. But I will say that things have settled down. Opinions are starting to shift. I think especially internally among the players, they've been receiving Sirianni really well from what I can tell. The main reason being because he's just like, he has so much energy and that's something that's been lacking over the last couple of years where it got stagnant a little bit. He's brought the juice, and his coaching staff is the youngest coaching staff in the NFL. They're bringing the juice. And so they're feeling that right now. And beyond that, they feel pretty good about the offense that he's beginning to install. So, I would say that the optimism is starting to creep in here a little bit. And that'll last as long as game one. We'll see what happens from there.
There you go. How is Jalen Hurts? What kind of offseason? I guess more so the spring workouts and all that. What did you see from him?
Yeah, so it was limited what they did. And so the Eagles not only didn't have a mini camp after talking with their veteran players, they agreed that the OTAs, they wouldn't be able to throw and drills 7-on-7 and 11-on-11. So it was all individual stuff. So it was hard to glean exactly, what kind of strides that he's made. So you have to go off a lot of what the coaches and players are saying. One thing is clear is that, he has the type of personality that players gravitate towards. I mean, that was, so much so last year that it was kind of a problem for Wentz, right? I mean,
right.
He was in the same locker room with them and people are like, man, I really like this Hurts guy. He just has a way of kind of rallying guys behind him. And I think that's been true from the veterans down to the rookies. They talk really well of him. And I think the coaches are happy with the way that he's been, taking in the new scheme so far. And certainly, he's got that dual threat ability, which opens up some lanes for the running and RPOs and that kind of thing. It's just a matter of whether he can improve his accuracy. And he was towards the bottom of the league in his limited starts last year, and that'll really be the key. I mean, if he can figure that part out and start hitting guys at a better rate, then this offense has a chance to be pretty good, I think.
Do you hear much from him, whether you're talking to people inside or outside the organization, about their confidence level that he could become that guy?
It's mixed. The opinions were mixed on him coming in.
Right.
From guys inside the building. There were some people who weren't all that high on him, and others, most notably the owner and Jeffrey Lurie, who wanted him. And Lurie influenced that pick. That's what my reporting says.
I'm familiar with that kind of a situation.
Yeah. It's very interesting the way that Lurie's involvement has crept up more and more and become more and more public, and he is definitely. He sways the needle in that organization. There's no question about it. And he liked Hurts. And so they made the Hurts thing happen. Kind of blew up in their face, but with the whole Wentz thing. But now here he is getting a chance to prove himself. But I do think it's mixed. There's some guys who are high on him internally who think that he can be that guy. And certainly, I mean, they made the move to trade Wentz. And so part of that was at least a part reflection of their confidence in Hurts, but there's others that are a little bit more skeptical. So but certainly the way that they're behaving suggests that they're not tied to him long term, because they've accrued 3 first-round picks for next year, and they're just sitting there waiting. Like, if Hurts doesn't go well, they're going to end up either trading for a veteran quarterback with those 3 first-rounders, or they're going to move up and get somebody. And so he's very much like on the clock already, even though it's his second year and he only has 4 starts.
See, and I thought getting those picks for next year may have been the best thing they did this offseason.
I think that's, in terms of long-term planning.
Yes.
Roseman is good at that. He's good at accruing assets. And yeah, I mean, they're set up pretty well to kind of control next year's draft. And it does also make sense. Like this past year, the draft is a crapshoot in a lot of ways. It always is, but even more so because of the circumstances.
Right.
Guys opting out, some guys not playing full seasons, all that sort of stuff. And so yeah, I think that was pretty smart, and it'll look a lot smarter once we get closer to April and recognize what kind of position they're in.
Right. And I think because that's something I thought Washington would have done more of, is getting more picks for next year, because they don't know who their guy is going to be in 2022 either. Really, they can't, maybe somebody emerges, but right now you can't say for sure who's that guy next year at this time. That's why I like what the Eagles did. I think the Giants got some of that too. So, Devontae Smith, the guy they took this year, what kind of impact do you feel he can have?
I think he can be, almost Justin Jefferson-like. I think that's the ceiling in his first year. The similar traits are the outstanding route running, the big game experience, the knowledge, and the body control is one thing that really stands out. I remember watching Jefferson and be like, man, this guy just knows how to adjust midair, catches everything, crisp route running. And I see a lot of the same stuff with Devontae Smith. And when you watch him on the field, granted, hasn't been in a team drill setting yet, but even just in individual drills, the way he moves, John, is different. Like
I like watching him play.
Yeah, I haven't seen a guy move like that since I don't know when.
Really,
in a Philadelphia uniform. Yeah, it's he just has this smoothness about him where it just looks totally effortless. And even though he's lined up to receivers who are, they're all world-class athletes, they're all the best in the world at what they do, and they just look like inferior to him. Now, I don't know what that's going to end up looking like on the NFL level. He's 166 pounds. Everybody knows he's a slim guy. But man, he's so gifted, and he's got the drive to go with it. I think he can be a star. I do.
Yeah, and he was a guy I liked in college because they could, even though he's small, they could use him a lot in a lot of different ways as well. And I think that versatility will help in that offense too. With the Eagles offense, what other things that you feel are important to know right now? Like offensive line, you're getting guys healthy. What are some other things that would be important to note right now?
We just talked with the offensive line coach Jeff Stoutland. He's one of the best in the game. He's a treat to talk to. and he's very honest and blunt. And he is really high on this offensive line. He just doesn't say things to say them. But he's seeing Brandon Brooks come back from his Achilles tear. He's seeing Lane Johnson come back from his ankle injury. He's watching some of these younger guys develop, and he feels really good about the state of affairs. So the big issue for the offensive line is that they're aging and they've been hurt a lot.
Right.
So that's really, I mean, can they figure a way to avoid that this year? That's a huge key for this team. Period. Like if they're healthy, they're going to end up being a pretty good team. And then they have young skill players. You know, it's the wide receivers are super young. It's Devontae Smith and it's Jalen Reagor, first round pedigree, both of them, but a first and a second year player that are going to be leading that charge. There's really not a veteran in the room. Dallas Goedert is going to be the lead man with Zach Ertz still in limbo and expected to be traded at some point before this season starts. And then you have a talented group at running back with Miles Sanders leading the way, Kenny Gainwell, those type of guys. So they have like a young, skilled group of skill position players. And it's just a matter of, how do they put it together and can the offensive line protect Hurts, give him some time to get it to those guys. What
about Andre Dillard? How is he? What are they saying about him? Because he had some rough moments.
Yeah, well, we Zoomed with him pretty recently, and he came across as a totally different person. Yeah, he was having confidence issues early. He was listening to social media too much, getting in his head, and then he cleaned some of that stuff up, and he comes across just like a guy that's ready to try to seize the opportunity. But he's competing with Jordan Mailata, the other left tackle out of Australia, who did pretty well when he got an opportunity to start this past season. So those two, it's like a legit competition for that starting left tackle spot that'll play out through the summer.
Defensively, that defensive line aging, but still seems to be really good. Obviously, they added Ryan Kerrigan. What do you think about this defense? Because that had been kind of the anchor of this franchise for a while.
Yeah, and now it's more of a question mark. I think that's fair. They do have some good things going for it. Anthony Harris got signed this offseason. I like him. He's a playmaker, and I think that's really going to be their MO. Just kind of listening to their new defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon. He's going to emphasize getting turnovers more than Jim Schwartz did. Schwartz, it was like cared about him, but not really, and not as much as some DCs out there. Gannon is really going to emphasize that. So I think they're going to be taking some risks, and there's a couple of good pieces in that secondary. Between Harris and Darius Slay. And along the defensive front, I think you nailed it. An aging group. Brandon Graham is north of 30. Fletcher Cox is getting up there. Ryan Kerrigan, I think, is a nice add, but he's obviously in the twilight of his career. But I still think that they have enough to generate a pretty good pass rush this season.
And I know, obviously, this team opted not to re-sign Kerrigan, and I know there's some people who only think he may have made an impact for 10 plays a game. Like that was his limit. What did you hear from people up there, or how much did you hear from people up there about what they feel like they're getting in Kerrigan?
Well, I think it's somebody that, the best comparison that we've heard is probably Chris Long.
Yeah.
The way that he came in, and it wasn't a starting role, but it was an important role where he came in. And I think it's going to be kind of similar where they're going to rotate their defensive line a good bit. Because they're just going to be exhausting their energies on the snaps that they're in there, going full bore, and so they're going to want to get some fresh bodies in there. And the Eagles already have their starters. Brandon Graham and Derek Barnett are their projected starters at defensive end. They have a young guy in Josh Sweat who is starting to come on, and so I think you add Kerrigan to the mix. That now you have like 4 quality defensive ends where there's not a huge let up when the next group comes on. And Kerrigan also brings kind of a culture setting vibe about him as well, where he can, this is a team in transition. This is a team that needs some guidance. That's going to need to hand off the torch in some ways as they look to, rebuild those championship aspirations. And Kerrigan, at least from what I can see, and you obviously know better than anyone, seems to be someone who would be good at that.
Yeah, he's a professional, and I think when you're in those situations, it's not always about getting a guy in there who's going to be grabbing guys by the face mask. It's about getting professionals in there who go about doing their job the right way. And that's what filters down, and that's what he certainly will add up there. How do you view Washington at this point from afar? I mean, people here are getting excited about what they think this franchise is, where they think the franchise is heading. How do you view them from your vantage point?
As the favorite in the NFC East, I'm a big Ron Rivera guy. And so, we started this conversation about how the tables kind of turned in terms of the dysfunction. And I think Rivera, at least from afar, is a big part of that. When you have somebody as capable as him that steps in and kind of resets the way things are done, he's got the experience under Reed. I mean, it has that kind of feel about it to me. That's really where it starts. And then he believes philosophically, I'm building on the inside out, that. And certainly the talent, especially on the defensive front, is just overwhelming. It's guys are so good. So once you have that going for you, then the other stuff seems to fall in place. And now at quarterback, you got a seasoned vet who you pretty much know what you're going to get with some good skill position players. So I like them. I mean, I don't think they're like knocking on the Super Bowl door, but I certainly like them as favorites in the division right now.
And I would think, in talking to others too, like I think this division should be a decent bit better than last year. I would think, because I think Dallas obviously with Dak, and then I think the Giants would be better. And then I think the Eagles, I would think right now they go in there as a fourth team, but as you know, in this division, you never know. And so, but I do think that this division will be very much improved. Do you think that would be the case?
I think so. I mean, I don't know that they're going to.
I don't look at the Super Bowl, right? I think
right?
I think compared to I don't think we're going to see a 7-9 team or 7-10 or 8-9 team win it. I think it will be, maybe a couple teams with winning records, which is a big improvement.
Yeah. I could see a couple 10, 11 win teams.
Maybe. Yeah.
And yes, and one thing that I've learned about this game and reaction to it is that we're always reacting to the season prior. Right. And that's where we always have our heads. So the Eagles win the Super Bowl. The next season, what are the predictions? It's 14 wins all around, right? They only win 4 this past year. Everybody thinks they're going to be absolutely horrible.
Right.
And, somewhere in between usually lies the truth. And I think that, injuries really hit this division hard last year. And so, I expect a bounce back, not a major one, but a bounce back from the NFC East.
Yeah. And I'm with you. Like when I say a lot of improvement, it's just because I don't think you're going to have the question of, will a team get to 500 or, you know what I mean? I think we'll be at a point where it's like, okay, I can see a 10-win team, 10-7, maybe 11-6 if everything goes right. And maybe you get 2 teams I think you'll get 2 teams with winning records, but that right now, to me, that classifies as big or major improvement. So
yeah, you know what? This division doesn't have much clarity at quarterback, though, does it?
No.
I mean, outside of Dak,
no.
Does any team really know what their future is at this point? That's not a great place to be.
It's not. And I think because Daniel Jones, you look at him, and there are some things alike, but I've never been a huge fan. But they added so much around him. What will that do? And then with Washington, with Fitzpatrick, I'm with you. I think he's an improvement. For how long? Can he do it for 17 games? We don't know. There are still questions about a guy who's been around for a long time, and Jalen and his situation. And shoot, even Dak is coming back from an injury, but he's at least the guy who say, okay, that's the one guy you think you know how it will go as long as he's healthy. So yeah, but I think hopefully it's just a little bit more interesting. Although I will say, last year was because of how bad it was, so bad it became good because it was so bad. So, it got us on SportsCenter a little bit, but
that's right. Right.
That's so there you go.
Keep it interesting. That's the main thing for us, right?
There you go. Tim, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate the insight.
All right, brother. Have a good summer.
You too.